From the very beginning, we have always sought to reach out to one another, and storytellers found a new forum for personal expression. Wondrous new tools will help us learn to bridge the gaps between us.
Good morrow, nerds. My name is Cheyenne. My friends call me Az, and at this point, I want a golden retriever more than I want a wedding. Welcome to the Larp House. This episode marks the beginning of addressing one of the big questions: how to start your own LARP. I am collecting interviews from LARP organizers and game designers, and every now and then I'll feature one of them on the show and highlight their words of wisdom. Is this the video that the almighty YouTube algorithm wants me to make? No, it's not. But I think it's important. I want the information out there in a more readily available video format. I want it to be easier for everyone to create the immersive experiences of their dreams. I started interviewing local game designers over a year ago when I still lived in California, so that's what we're going to start with. And to kick things off, today you're going to meet Angela and John, who have been running a high fantasy boffer LARP in Southern California called Twin Mask for about 6 years now. If you want to find out more about their game and their other projects, links for all that will be in the description of this video. Now please allow me to shut up while you learn things.
Hey, this is John Bassett.
And I'm Angela Bassett, and we've been running our game, Twin Mask, which runs in Southern California for 8 years now. I've read like a ton of fantasy books, mostly when I was younger. I don't really have a lot of time to read anymore because I have to come up with my own stories now. But I do take a lot of inspiration from things like that. And I mean, even like TV shows, like occasionally. But for the most part, I try very hard to, even if something like that inspires me, to still, spin it very differently so that it's not like, oh, you totally stole that plot from Game of Thrones. Like, that's so obvious. Like, you don't want to do stuff like that. But you could take, like, aspects of it, and it's like, oh, that was a cool idea. Like, I can kind of adapt that into our own setting, too.
In terms of keeping the game world up to date, it's a lot of work. You could just try to wing it, and you're like, some people died over there. But we, at least in Twin Mask, we have this massive Excel sheet, and I have the troop numbers of each major army and like during battles and things. Even if it's rough math, I still have numbers to base things on. And one of the big reasons why I went that route is because player action needed to matter. So if the players have been working hard to beat up a certain faction, well, those numbers need to reflect it. We still have to occasionally pull out of John's head.
Yeah, I mean, as much as you try to write down, there are all these ideas and things not fully fleshed out, especially about history, because that's harder to. You always want your notes to be kind of as simplified and easy to reference as possible. So I like bullet points. So, Twin Mask's first event was very, very brutal. We were running it in California, and we're in the middle of this drought, but that weekend it decided to have this torrential downpour. So, and it was cold.
Yeah.
There was frost on the ground, everyone was wet. And we were losing tents, like the tents were just getting flooded and broken. The wind picked up one of our 10 by 30 tents, flipped it upside down, broke it in half. And this was our first event.
The rain and the tent destruction and all that was Friday night.
Yeah.
And so then, the player morale was very low.
Yeah, anyone's first game is going to be bad, and they're going to, well, not necessarily bad, but there are going to be things that you didn't think about. But we muscled through, and we're in, 5-6 years?
5, yeah.
Yeah. The math that you want to go with, or at least the math I recommend, is one storyteller or staff team for every 10 players.
Yeah, I mean, we have...
One dedicated storyteller.
Yeah, we probably have like 10 total. But, I mean, not everyone can make it to every game. So probably our people that are at every game is we have about 5 people, 5 storytellers that, you know, show up at every game. But
well, and I mean, again, it depends on the weekend. It depends on a lot of stuff. Plus, we have a lot of other players that help out in kind of staff capacities. And then when you start adding them, you know, the number's pretty substantial. But because, I mean, really, like, a LARP can't function with just the directors.
Yeah. As far as involvement, like, behind the scenes, like, we don't really try to ask, like, too much from our storytellers because we know, you know, it's, like, they're volunteering their time to us. So, you know, we try to take care of most of, like, behind the scenes stuff ourselves.
Let's back up a little bit. A game doesn't start Friday.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about, like, preparing for a game, you're going to start at the end of the last game. You pretty much collapse in a pile, sleep for a day at least, and then write down as many ideas as you can before you forget them. Immediately after a game, that's when you're the most excited, and ideas are coming to you a mile a minute. So you gotta capture all of those. Doesn't matter what form, just write them down. We also have something called PELs, or post-event letters, and that's basically player feedback. Probably early after the game, while you still remember most of the details of the event, you go through those and you find out, kind of in a brutal way, what players didn't like and what they did like. And a lot of times PELs can be pretty harsh, but it's information that's kind of important for you to know. So then you have your meetings. That's just a lot of logistics of plugging numbers in. You have your meetings just working with your staff team to start forming the event. And Thursday night, you don't sleep. Just you don't get to sleep because you're doing all the last minute things that you should have been doing a week ago. Players, by the way, as you're getting closer to the event, players will be continuing to bombard you with things that they're just remembering now that it's just before the event. So you're doing all the last minute things, you're loading your car, you finally get to site, and now it's Friday.
Check-in. We usually try to get any of the new players introduced as quickly as possible, just so they get the most, like, you know, time out of the event.
We normally do an opening ceremonies before
that too.
game start.
Oh, and like new player training,
weapon
safety
check,
checks,
stuff like that.
Sort of thing.
Announcements, a lot of times, like, because we use different campsites, you need to know what the issues are with that at, you know, that particular site.
We have a plot schedule that we loosely try to follow, kind of have to, like, go with the flow. And then we also just do, like, random encounters in between, you know, things like that.
Yeah, random encounters are typically designed to more as environmental. You know, you're in a location with a lot of undead. Well, undead ought to be roaming around. So we go through the event as best as we can, rolling with whatever craziness the players throw at us. And not sleeping. And then finally Sunday comes, and it's a magical day.
Just being as inclusive as possible.
Yeah, think about what you would enjoy as a player being part of.
Yeah, I mean, I try to keep in mind, like, to be able to include as many people in, like, a mod as possible. Like, you don't want to write something necessarily where you have, like, 3 staff members entertaining 1 player.
Yeah.
Like, you want to utilize your NPCs and staff in such a way that you're getting, like, the maximum results out of it. So just trying to keep that in mind when you're writing mods is really important.
There should always be a fallback for, well, what if the players don't succeed? Mm-hmm. And you should write that too. If you're going to have someone blow up the world, well, I hope you have some plan for if the PCs fail to stop that guy. Because a lot of people who write mods don't necessarily take that into account. And then if it starts going that way, they start railroading it, and then you just took away the victory from the players too. And even though they defeated the villain, it doesn't feel like a victory.
I mean, for the most part, most of our players pay in cash. We do have a
Credit card
option, a Square reader that we use occasionally. We do plan on integrating like a prepay option into the website eventually, hopefully sooner rather than later, but currently everything's mostly cash.
Yeah, I mean, you want things to be as effortless for players as possible, but a lot of it just comes down to logistics. So AGP stands for After Game Party. I hadn't even heard of it till I moved out west.
Yeah.
But it's a tradition that they at least have in this city, which is just to pretty much go out and get food afterwards.
Yeah, no, it's really nice, like having everybody still together and talking about like what their highlights were. That's usually where I get my immediate feedback of like how the event went and like, you know, seeing the enjoyment from people. We've even started doing like monthly get-togethers like between games just to kind of, you know, continue with that.
Yeah, we're discovering more and more the importance of just hanging out when you're not your character.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Bleed's a thing, and getting to know the real person, not the character that you're confronting a lot of times is really important. Because it is a community and we're all in it together. So. Dealing with player triggers is tricky because each one of us is different. So I think that it really comes down to communication. And almost every single rule book will also say certain things that they allow or don't allow. For instance, it's pretty common in Larp that, you know, physical contact, direct physical contact, you need to at least ask permission first. It's your responsibility to know, you know, what those conditions of the game are as well.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like when things actually happen at game, we have people that you can talk to out of game. You can definitely remove yourself and go to a safe spot, like go to your car for like a half hour and just like decompress. We definitely work with people on that and want to make sure that they feel safe at game.
Rules violations, like if someone's creating a hostile environment, like we even have a no bullying policy. Because there's a difference between like PvP or waiting for the new player to show up, beating them up, chopping off their limbs, tying them to a tree, and making them sit that entire event at the tree. Like that second option would not be allowed.
Yeah.
And that's just because, you know, you're being a dick, and like we don't want that behavior. We have 2 harassment officers. Their main job, though, is to be a safe person who isn't, say, the owner of the game, who they can come to and talk about anything that, really anything that bothers them. The focus is on anything that's of a serious nature, like in terms of like physical threat or sexual threat could be another one. In terms of bleed, like just an emotional problem, yeah, they can of course come to us, though it's treated more like friends rather than in any official capacity, because at least in my experience, the best people to get you through those are, again, your friends. The biggest thing for me that I wish I knew now that I didn't then is, when you create the game, it can be anything you want. You know, you're creating rules that people are either accepting and saying, okay, that's cool, or not. But once you create the game, it's so hard to change things.
Probably both of our favorite part is just seeing like the players' enjoyment out of what we present for them. I mean, yeah, just seeing our players grow even as people, but mostly, yeah, just the enjoyment that they get out of it.
Yeah, the number one, I think, has to be watching other people experience the same change, positive change, that LARP's had for us. So it's kind of like paying it forward. My advice to someone who wants to make their own game is to again think long and hard about the future ramifications of every decision that they're making. Again, because it's so easy to make these changes at the game's creation, and then it can be a nightmare later on to change things. Also, take pre-production serious. You know, like, you should be preparing for a while before you ever launch your first game. I get that you probably want to launch it in like that month, that week, that whatever, but you want to have, you know, you want to have your rules fleshed out. You want to have character sheets done, tags. You know, you want to assemble a really solid staff team. You know, talk about lore, like a complex setting. You know, you want to do all that stuff before you launch your first game.
Yeah, and just be flexible. Be ready to dodge whatever curveballs players throw at you.
I want to thank John and Angela personally for putting up with the craziness of that day, and me and that house, and letting me pick their brains in front of the internet. Thank you. When I do come to visit my friends in California, NPCing Twin Mask is going to be pretty high on that priority list. Because, you know, a lot of my friends play Twin Mask. So that would be part of visiting them. If you are a LARP organizer, a game designer, or a staff member, and you feel like you want to participate in this, please do. I very much encourage you to, because you can submit your own interviews. Wow! Please check out the public interview master post on our Patreon page. Links will be in the description and probably up here somewhere. Yes, it is on our Patreon. No, you do not have to pay to see it. It's a public post. All the guidelines for submissions will be there. And that's all I have for you this episode, my nerds. Thank you so much for watching. We love you, we cherish you, and if you have any questions, comments, or emotional outbursts, or if you want to support us in any way, if you do want to support us in any way, links for all of that will be in the description of this video. And of course, thank you so much for liking us, subscribing to us, and creating with us. Oh my god, I really need a snack. Though after the way the internet handled me eating chips in one video, I think I'll just starve. Spicy.